for your willingness to serve, your willingness to be a part of something that's a little bit of a challenge to our town. Over my tenure as an elected official, is something we've been talking about. I got elected in 2013 for the first time to the board, and we've been, I guess, dancing around this affordable housing matter, talking about it, interested in it, but not being able to get on with it for some period of time. I will tell you that I know the commissioners that are involved on this committee, Commissioner Bilodeau and Commissioner Miltic. We're determined to bring this to a conclusion of some sorts. We don't know exactly what that will be, but it's very appropriate to do that with the input of a lot of really, really good citizens. And the opportunity of providing this committee to you folks and asking you to serve has been overwhelmingly positive to me. I don't really think we had hardly anybody turn us down, did we, Wayne?
No, sir.
And I'm very grateful to you for serving, because it's going to be sort of quick and dirty, if you will, hopefully. My time, I won't say limit, but a recommended time to get us to a conclusion or a recommendation is in and around 6 months. I hope it could be quicker, but we've all got stuff to learn. I've got stuff to learn, and I know our commissioners agree with that, and I think all of y'all agree with that. Affordable housing is different for every community. It's very different for every community. We're not Charlotte, and we're not Davidson. So what it means to us, we're going to have to define that, and that's what's important. But it is an important topic, and it does involve certainly the social and racial equity across all the lines in our community. That you can't talk about this and not view that as a piece of what we think about as we try to conclude where we want to go as a town. But we want Cornelius to be an inclusive community. We want our neighbors to feel safe, and we want everybody to feel included here. And affordable housing opportunities has been a concern for all of us that lead your town, really, as I said, for many, many years. And I want you to know, too, that in 2018, the Lake Norman Economic Development Corporation, which serves our three towns, I think many of you know, it's funded by our town and Huntersville and Davidson. And we work on developing economically bigger projects, throughout our region to provide jobs, which is important. So they helped us fund a study, I guess back in 2018, as I said, and what we learned out of that, and this sort of floors me, but think about it, 80% of the people who work in Cornelius cannot afford to live in Cornelius. Something a little bit wrong with that picture, in my opinion, and that includes police, our startup police officers, our firemen, our teachers, and it certainly includes our retail workers like McDonald's and Steinmart, and you name them. So across the board, but totally inclusive of a lot of folks you really wouldn't think about. So also, our market feedback tells us that a large number of empty nesters and seniors would like to live in our town to be closer to their family. But affordable housing may be an issue for them to be able to do that. So that's very concerning as well. We do have some neighborhoods where that goes on, like Bailey's Glen's a good example, that it's a seniors community, but at the same time, housing out there, Keith, is what, 400,000 or 500,000, 600,000 now.
At least,
yes. Per unit. So that's not affordable housing in my thinking. So my hope is that this group will guide our town board in a direction that we can make and establish future policy, our codes, our budget decisions related to housing here in our community. And what I want to do first is get back to my agenda here, make sure I'm on track here. What I'd like to do first is ask our deputy town manager. We're very lucky to have Wayne Heron working with us on this project. And the reason for that is he has a very, very extensive planning background. He's dealt with this issue in the past, and last and not least, and most importantly, he's passionate about it. He understands the need, and I think he will help us really make a difference. So with that, Deputy Manager Wayne Heron, if you will give us a little bit of a presentation on the history of housing in Cornelius. I see several natives, Todd Little and others out there, several of you that certainly can relate to some of this history, and then we'll move toward introducing each one of you, and make sure we know that you all know who all you're working with, and and you'll be as excited about this committee as I am. So Wayne, turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I too look forward to the introductions, because each one of you were very carefully selected to bring something to the table that might help inform and educate the rest of us. And as the mayor said, affordable housing, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And as we talk about whether or not we should develop a comprehensive housing plan, if we should, what should it include? There's just so many things that as a community we might decide to look at, or we might decide that's more than we can bite off. So what I'd like to do is just give you a little overview. And okay, so Danny or somebody help me out. What are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Not yet, Wayne.
There we go.
All right. I'm still not an expert at this Zoom, but we're getting there. So, history of housing in Cornelius. Let's see here. Okay. So, and there's been talk about housing for a long time in Cornelius, and we hear different things from different segments of the population. Ron Potts is on here, and we've been talking with Smithville Community Coalition, Smithville neighborhood, about housing issues. We've got Susan Johnson. We've been talking to realtors about the lack of housing for first-time home buyers and the inventory that realtors have for people in that particular segment of the market. We've also been talking with our police officers about down payment assistance and rental subsidies and things of that nature. So a lot of different things that I'll talk about, but a lot of times what generates a discussion is articles that you might see in the Charlotte Observer or in Cornelius Today. And one thing I will mention before I jump through some of these slides, Cornelius Today did a very informative question and answer session up at the Peninsula Club, and had a lot of people who were key in affordable housing. And it was one of the best sessions that I think I've been to in a while. Commissioner Pat Cotham, Mecklenburg County Commissioner, was there. And I'll tell you, she is one lady who really supports affordable housing and understands it. So we will certainly and may hear from her during our discussions as to where she feels the county is headed and how the county might work with us. But one of the articles that came out in the Charlotte Observer, and you see a little synopsis here on the screen, Charlotte voters decided on $200 million for street and housing and neighborhood bonds. So voters here in Cornelius knew that, well, we've been approving transportation bonds, we've been approving housing bond, or excuse me, downtown redevelopment bonds or town center redevelopment bonds and park bonds. Are we considering housing? And our response was, that's not something we've considered in recent time. And then it was the question of, well, what do those bonds do for Charlotte? And if Cornelius were to do this, what could they do for us? And we said, well, those are good discussions to have. There were several articles about the gap between Mecklenburg rents and what people can afford, and how that gap keeps increasing, especially with rents. As many of you know, especially here in Cornelius, we have not approved any multifamily, with the exception of the watermark condos, which, as many of you know, that's not affordable. Those are selling for upwards of $1 million a piece. So true apartments that go for rent, that's not something the town has approved recently. So there's been a lot of discussion, well, to help millennials, to help seniors, do we need to look at some affordable rental housing? And there was a article about affordable housing that works in Charlotte, and it talked about, and if you look halfway down through this article, there's an acronym. It says NOAH, Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing. Well, while that happens in Charlotte quite a bit, it does not happen in Cornelius. What NOAH is just projects that people renovate or take on that they can achieve affordability. Well, with our property values in Cornelius and the lack of inventory, that's not something that happens here. So that's a concern, and then people have talked about that. Every time Charlotte talks about something, I get a lot of questions from citizens. Are we doing that, and will that apply to us? This is an article that just happened in Minneapolis a while back, where Minneapolis, to try to promote affordable housing, talked about doing away with standard single-family zoning and just opening it up and letting people do whatever they choose, whether it be multifamily on their lot, 2 or 3 granny apartments in the backyard. Well, yes, Charlotte was talking about that in several districts, but I assured people that was not something we were talking about in Cornelius. Just because Charlotte talks about it doesn't mean Cornelius or Matthews or anyone else necessarily does that. And things like this often create fear, and that's why people are not ready to talk about affordable housing, because they have fear of some of these large urban Charlotte type ideas that are floating around out there. And then, of course, articles like the Crosland bringing development affordable housing, and using, you'll see down at the bottom of this article, using the Housing Trust Fund. And so I've had a lot of questions about, well, hey, can we get a part of that Housing Trust Fund? Well, the answer is yes, we could. And I think the county would love for us to be a part of that, because right now the county focuses almost 100% of their dollars in the city of Charlotte. And they would love to provide housing funds other places in Mecklenburg County, but outside of Davidson, no other town in the county has a housing plan or a comprehensive housing plan or a housing plan at all. This notice in the paper generated a lot of discussion. There are tools out there that can be used for affordable housing, such as CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant. There's HUD grants. And so folks ask us all the time, well, why are we not tapping into more of those small grants? We do try. We are part of a consortium in Mecklenburg County that we try to jump into these things, but these grants often come with strings attached. What you'll notice in this article, and what a lot of people called us about, is this was an advertisement that we were giving money back. And the question was, well, why are you doing that? Well, we applied for the money to build a park in a local neighborhood, but the stipulations required that a very high percentage, and I think it was close to 60% or even more than that of the people in the neighborhood had to agree to it. Well, we didn't achieve that. The folks in the neighborhood were afraid that if they opened up a public park in their neighborhood, it would attract people from other areas that would increase crime. So we were not able to develop that park. So with all of these discussions, as Mayor Washam noted, when he became mayor, he worked with the mayors of the other towns in North Mecklenburg, Huntersville and Davidson. And then we coordinated with the Lake Norman Economic Development Corporation to do a demographic and housing assessment. We felt it was important to know, where are we? What's going on with our housing before we could tackle whether or not we needed a plan. The mayor mentioned the 80% of the folks who work here don't live here, but some other key tidbits that came out of that, the average assessed home value in North Mecklenburg is $286,539, pretty high. Average home sale, $342,885, pretty high, not in affordable housing realm. An average apartment rent at $1,254. And what we found is, most of our starting police officers and our teachers need something below $1,200. But there's a reason the numbers are that way. And what as we go through this committee, we're going to hear from some developers. You can't just automatically set a number at 1,000. There's a cost to developing. And the only way to get that cost down is to subsidize it in some form or fashion. And the same thing with redevelopment, whether that subsidy is housing trust fund, whether it's grants, whether it's rental subsidies, whether it's property donation, there has to be some subsidy to bring the number down to make the project work financially. Another key number is 8,000 cost burdened households in North Mecklenburg. Those are households that are paying their rent, but because their rent is so high, they pretty much can't pay for a lot of any other things, really no disposable income. There are 900 subsidized units in North Mecklenburg. Over half of those are in Davidson. The number that we found for Cornelius, we think that's around 86. So that's the most subsidies we have on housing in Cornelius. So as we've noted, currently the town does not have a housing plan. Now that is not unusual. Davidson is the only one of the 6 towns in Mecklenburg County outside of the city of Charlotte that has a housing plan. Now, those of you that were on the call earlier as we were talking, you heard our planning board chair, Mr. Eicher, ask about the legalities of the Davidson plan. We don't really get into that. As the mayor said, if the Davidson folks had the perfect plan that fit us, we would of course copy that, but we believe there's a different plan out there for Cornelius that fits us. And we're not going to chastise Davidson. They do a great job. They do it their way. But we would like to do Cornelius our way. And this is what we hope the committee will help us figure out. So what do we have in Cornelius right now? We have an adopted comprehensive master plan. This was a plan that was adopted in 2010. Looking back, it involved more citizens in citizen committee and in citizen involvement than probably any comprehensive plan that I've seen. But there are 4 strategies within that plan that I can point out that might lead us to where we need to go. The first one is reinvesting in our neighborhoods. It should be the building block for stronger, more cohesive community with diverse housing options that promote a higher quality of living. The second bullet, we're to create residential neighborhoods of opportunity. The third bullet, we need to have a common approach that may involve government investment and policies that might jumpstart revitalization. And then the last bullet, to create standards to encourage redevelopment of declining areas. Specifically, I think that means looking at our land use and our zoning policies. So a little bit of background. Just because we don't have a plan doesn't mean that we haven't been doing things. We have had a lot of partnerships over the years. One of the ones that we're most proud of, and Ryan, I'm glad with Habitat is part of our committee and he's on here today, but we partnered with Habitat for a number of years. Not only in developing subdivisions, which out on Bailey Road, there is a 100% Habitat subdivision. And I think we're very proud of that. It turned out very nicely and is a great asset to the community. Habitat has also been a partner in doing individual lot development and on Ferry Street and I think some other parts of town as well. And Habitat does a great job with energy efficient homes. And the one thing that I think helps us the most is the counseling that they do with these folks for how to take care of a home, how to budget. And that makes for a very viable contributing citizen for the future. We also have applied, I mentioned the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant. Through our consortium with Mecklenburg County, we have tried to use these grants for sidewalk and infrastructure. We have also tried to use them for urgent repair, housing repair. We often run into roadblocks with the strings that are attached to them, but we continue to evaluate and apply for those where we think it can do some help and benefit for our citizens. The town has for many years also debated the differences in neighborhood revitalization versus gentrification. Now, those are some big issues, but I think just to simplify it, gentrification is generally where you just let the market handle the change in the neighborhood. And sometimes that might be okay. That might be what the neighborhood desires. It might be what the town wants. But other times you might have to look at a specific revitalization plan because gentrification might not allow for people to gain the wealth they deserve and to stay in place. And sometimes you have to look at revitalization if you want to look at allowing people to sell property, gain the appropriate wealth that the family deserves, and also to remain in place. So sometimes we have to look at different plans. The Smithville Community Coalition, and they are looking at a revitalization plan. And they are doing this on their own. The town is behind them. We consult with them. We talk to their planner, and we want to be a part of that. But they are getting their own grants, and so far have done this on their own as used some county money. So we applaud their efforts, and we'll talk about that, and we'll hear from them on what their how they started, what the pros and cons are, and what's involved with that. Addressing housing is not a mandate for a municipality. It's an option for the government to consider. Now, people are dumbfounded when they hear us say that. Now, what I hear back is, well, I think it's a moral mandate. Well, there's a lot of things that are moral mandates: public safety, different things with budgeting, different things with garbage pickup. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider as to how are we going to set our priorities, where are we going to spend our money, and what are we going to provide to our community. And that, again, that's where we hope this committee will advise us on how we should proceed. As has been mentioned, housing is addressed differently all over the country. So things we want this committee to consider: does Cornelius need a comprehensive housing plan? And if yes, comprehensive is a lot of different things. It could be that we address one or two items in a very comprehensive way, or maybe we look at the whole spectrum of what can be done in housing and annually talk about how we participate in those things differently. There could be discussions on short-term items. We could continue our partnership with organizations such as Habitat, which I think that's a real positive. We recently have developed some employee incentives. There's some debates on, well, is that an employee incentive or is that an affordable housing incentive? And what outcomes do you see in other municipalities who have done this? We'll continue to apply for CDBG and other resources as they become available. There might be some discussion. Matter of fact, I know there will be when we bring in some developers who will talk about how you might address affordable housing. And there's going to be a lot of discussion. Well, you need to look at your land use and you need to look at your zoning. Your densities don't promote affordable housing. You don't approve multifamily. And there also needs to be some discussion of by right versus conditional. Now, we've had some discussions here lately that maybe board review always brings about a better project. But what you'll hear from developers is there might be times that the political process adds money, adds time, and adds restrictions that maybe are not necessary from what you might have in your code. So there's pros and cons to both sides. I'm not here to advocate one or the other. Those are just things that we need to talk about. And we hear a lot about NIMBY. And if you haven't heard that, it's a lot of folks say, hey, that's a great idea, but not in my backyard. And so those are always things we have to deal with. Some long-term goals: we might continue to seek the partnerships with Mecklenburg County, Foundation for the Carolinas, the Housing Coalition, explore the differences in gentrification and revitalization. Can the town own properties that we can assist in the revitalization process? And potential budget options One thing that I know a lot of cities do is they have a down payment program. They might get CDBG to provide down payment, but a lot of cities have started budgeting to provide down payment assistance. That's one of the biggest things that young families, they might have the income to afford a monthly payment and do well, but they simply haven't been able to save up a down payment. And so down payment assistance programs are very popular for first-time buyers and for affordable housing. So today is our kickoff. I'm going to stop there on the history part. And part of our kickoff today is to find out the backgrounds and the interest of each of our committee members. So Mayor, I'm going to stop there and turn it over to you to lead the committee in the introductions.
Okay, thank you so much, Wayne. That was a great summary and a great foundation, I think, to where we're going to be traveling over the next few weeks and months. So we appreciate that, and we'll be building on all that as we move forward. Now, I will say I somehow didn't get my list of participants printed out properly, Wayne. So if you can either put them up on the screen or call them out, either one will work, and we'll just go down the list here. And what I want you to speak about when your turn comes is tell us which neighborhood or organization in Cornelius that you represent. If you will also talk about what's the top issue that you'd like to see this committee address regarding housing. I'm giving you a lot here. So the next one is, do you believe the housing issue should be addressed by the town, or is it a regional or county issue? That's something that we've talked a lot about at our board level. So I'm interested in your feedback as well. Should the town develop a housing plan? Just period. In point blank, should we develop a housing plan, in your opinion? And what unique perspective do you bring to the table with regards to housing in Cornelius? What is your role here that could make a difference in getting us to where we need to travel? So it's a lot of stuff there. We'd like you to hold it to 3 to 4 minutes. That might be a challenge. But I don't want to keep you on the Zoom all day long. But if you could touch base on those things, we may have a little dialogue with you as we progress through the process. So anyway, Wayne, you want to call on our first participant?
Yes, sir. And to follow up on what the mayor said, staff does have a little timer just so we can stay on track. So you might hear a faint beep or ding there in the background. That'll kind of be your 3-minute mark. But Mayor, I'll just go right down the roster, and the first one we'll call on Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Bilodeau.
Thank you, Dennis.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Dennis Bilodeau, Mayor Pro Tem. I live in the Peninsula. I happen to be the president of the Peninsula Homeowners Association, but I spend a lot of time on the east side of town. I have an office. I'm an insurance agent, and I'm there on North Main Street. I've been active with the Smithville Community Coalition. I've got a great interest and first ran on the idea that the east side of our town could use some help, and I certainly want to do that. Wayne, as usual, is very detailed, covered a lot of turf and a lot of information, but I'd like to submit that this is not going to be Affordable Housing 101. What I'm anxious to see is this a graduate course, something that we can do to move quickly. And, I heard all of the great things that I had in mind in terms of maybe moving in phases on a regional basis, looking at it beyond just Cornelius, because one size doesn't fit all. And I know that we can use help outside of our town, but we could also set priorities for our town. And that way we could have short-term goals and actually see the change within a short period of time. There's so much need. So I'm very anxious, very appreciative to be a part of this. It's a great group, so I know that we can move quickly. It would be a disappointment if all at the end of the day we have is a large group of folks looking at material and research that is out there without moving forward. So I appreciate the overview by the mayor, and certainly Wayne has given us a lot to think about. and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank
By
you,
the
Dan.
way, yeah, Mayor, just quick, I do have to leave here shortly. I've got to follow up on a COVID test. I happen to be sitting near someone Monday night that tested positive.
Well,
So
good luck on that.
thanks
Are you
for the birthday present.
Are you feeling okay?
Oh no, I'm fine, but I have elderly parents and a grandbaby that they're telling me to go get tested. So
I second that recommendation, sir. Absolutely.
So Mayor,
Okay.
next we have Dr. Mike Miltick, who is also a Cornelius Commissioner.
Yeah, but I wasn't that close to the mayor. So anyway, so my background is I was an otolaryngologist for 35 years. How that has anything to do with housing is beyond me. But since I've been elected in 2015, I have been very active in transportation issues. And I think anything we do in Cornelius, the citizens, our first question they're going to say is, how is that going to affect traffic? So I'll bring that experience to that. Also, I'm now getting an expertise in transit issues, and I see transit as being a big part of affordable housing condition, as well as I've sit on LD CAB, the land use committee. Again, another important piece when it comes to housing. So I'll bring that skill set: housing, land use, and transit and transportation. Also, I am our representative to CMS, so I have some education thrown into my information mix, and also, of course, I have the healthcare data. I was concerned about this issue, and people were saying our kids, residents of Cornelius, our kids can't afford to move here to be close to their parents, and also seniors are finding themselves being priced out of staying in Cornelius, which they love being in Cornelius, but they can no longer stay here as they downsize. This is a multifactorial issue. I think as many different aspects that we can approach this issue by, and I love this committee. I think it's will flesh out these issues well. So I'm looking forward to working with this committee. I live off Nance Road, right next to the Ramsey Creek world famous park beach, but I try and represent all of Cornelius equally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Who's next, Wayne?
Next, Mayor, we have our Planning Board Chairman, Mr. Keith Eicher.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. As he already said, I'm chair of the planning board, but I'm also a resident of Bailey's Glen, which I don't think any longer is a affordable housing for most folks. As the mayor indicated, most of our houses now are in the mid 400s to 6, and even some I think approaching 7. And resales in the area I live in, which we call Uptown, which is across the little bridge and in the rear entry garages. Most of those are going in the upper 3s and mid 4s. And that's I could not afford to live there now if I had not been here for 7 years. As planning board chair, one of my concerns is I also serve on the pre-development committee, and as Mike on the land development code advisory board, is that we see lots of pre-development coming through, and most of those, when there are houses involved, are starting at 400,000 to 500,000. There's not anything out there that's serving the affordable housing. So I think it's something we need to address, and I think the planning board would appreciate guidance in terms of those kinds of things as we move forward. So I think a housing plan of some sort would be nice. My concern is that we have some infill property, but not much new property available out there in large plots. And if we go with the arts district, we're going to try to redevelop some of that area in the process. And if we want artists to live in there, I'm not sure that all artists could afford to live in a Cornelius. And I think that as a resident of Cornelius, I have a great deal more interest in the community than if I were not a resident. If I were an employee, that's one thing. I earn my living there, but I don't live there, so I have very little interest in some respects. So I think that's one of the things that we have to deal with as well. We have a workforce that doesn't live here, and we hope that they support everything that we do. So I have the planning board experience, the LDCAB experience, pre-development, all of which I think I can bring to bear on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Mayor, next we have Sean Herndon with Beacon Group Properties.
Pleasure.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. First off, thank you for this opportunity to participate in this. This is very, to me, it's a very important issue for our area. As Wayne says, we did rebrand our company. We're now Winston Dane over at Keller Williams and Cornelius. And I'm a residential realtor. Been doing it here in town for 3 years. Been living here in Westmoreland subdivision for 5. Lived in many different states, from Boston to Scottsdale to Naples, Florida, Jacksonville. Wife and I, with previous jobs, moved around quite a bit. Outside of my real estate experience, I have 13 years as a business owner in the staffing and IT recruiting world. I wanted to mention that because that is something that I utilize every day as experience of working with individuals to help development with their skills. I also bring those skills into my residential world as well. And the top issue I feel with this is making sure that we are able to be a place for everybody. I do think this is a very big hill to go up, but I think with this committee and the different backgrounds, I think this is something we can do. I do think this is something the town needs to at least have an understanding and plan, but at the same time partner with the other towns, the city of Charlotte. I think we all need to have an understanding where we can help everybody. And I think I actually hit all the points Mayor Woody brought up. So I will pass on from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Mayor, our next member is Ms. Susan Johnson with Susan Johnson and Associates.
Hi, Susan.
Hey there. Sorry, I was having to unmute myself. Thank you so much for this opportunity as well. I'm genuinely am very thrilled to be on this committee. As Wayne mentioned, he and I have had several different discussions about affordability just in the Cornelius area in general. My background, I actually currently serve on the planning board. Have done so for several years now. And prior to that, I actually was on the LDCAB board as well. So been very involved in the town and was very involved in putting together the comprehensive plan or comprehensive use plan for any of the updates that we had done since 2010. So very excited about that. One of the things that my unique perspective is similar to Sean, I also am a realtor. I've been doing it for about 15 years. Am a native to the Lake Norman area. I've seen it grow substantially even since the early 90s. So that's been a real, blessing as well. As far as putting together a housing plan, I think that there definitely is some sort of need for that. The one thing I would certainly caution is, as we know, a lot of times when you start to put plans together, even with the best of intentions, you could potentially create further issues. So that's one of the things that I want to make sure as we're looking at, how to best create affordability in Cornelius, that, we keep that in mind also. The one thing that Wayne and I've talked about on several different occasions is the fact that we really don't have housing in price points of 300 to 500. And as Sean mentioned, homes right now, they're really starting around 450, 500. And if you look at new construction, the price point of new construction is 500,000 or more. That's not something that people can typically afford. So, I really want to make sure as we're looking not only at existing housing, but also at new construction starts, that we keep that in mind. I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Mayor, next one in line is Mr. Ryan Carter with Habitat for Humanity of the Charlotte region.
Hello, Ryan. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Washam, and thanks everyone for having me. Again, Ryan Carter with Habitat of the Charlotte region. We serve everywhere from Pineville all the way up to the tip top of Iredell County. That being said, I'm not a construction staffer, so if you need help with your roof, please don't ask me. I'll only make it worse. At Habitat, I do our advocacy and legislative affairs work. So I'm up in Raleigh, DC, all the government centers, working on figuring out what is the housing policy side of it, right? We can say nice things about this is what we'd like to do, but what's the practicality of it? I have a background in housing policy. I worked in DC in the House Financial Services Committee, and I ran their affordable housing portfolio for a short while. So very familiar with this, this issue and great solutions. In my role at Habitat, I'm fortunate to work with other affiliates across the country of varying different size markets, growing, shrinking, urban, rural. So really working on having that access to this broad network that I work with on a daily basis. So really excited to be working on this. When I moved back to the Charlotte region, I started my career in Cornelius. So really happy to be back in North Mecklenburg. Perspectives. Yes, so to all of the above, is this a town issue, regional? Yes, all of it. I think having a playbook of sorts is really important for the town. But understanding that North Mech is a unique region, and understanding what role to play within a larger scheme is really important. But understanding that Cornelius is its own place. I think something that Mayor Washam brought up that just has really struck with me, I wrote down, is how 80% of employees in Cornelius cannot afford to live there. That's jarring and very troubling. So I think that's something that we can work on. I know Cornelius, y'all know Cornelius is a great place, but we certainly know that housing is really at the intersection of issues of traffic and employment. Live, work, play, that's a great motto for all communities, and I think that's one Cornelius can really work towards. So yes, we should also have a plan. Top issue that I'd like to see, that I'd love to be a part of and I'm excited about, is kind of diving into those nuts and bolts of what are those core issues regarding zoning, planning, building codes, that sort of thing. I know we were talking earlier about density, and I know whenever I think of density, I think of the Lane Tree at Lake Norman development right across the county line and all those apartments right there and how jarring that is. But you know, there's soft density, right? Let's talk about duplex, triplex, quadplex, soft density issues where we can find ways to have lower cost ownership opportunities within the single family kind of mindset of there's just one building there, not, you know, an 8-story, you know, 300 unit complex. I get that. So yeah, those are some things that I'm excited to work on and trying to figure out what are those policy levers that can be pulled.
Thank you, Ryan, very much. Wayne?
Our next speaker is Janice Hinton with Ada Jenkins Center.
Hey, Janice, great to have you.
Thank you for letting me be here. It's an honor. As you said, I'm Janice Hinton. I work at the Ada Jenkins Center, and I've been here for about 15 years. I also work with Hope to Home, which is a joint venture between Ada Jenkins Center and Hope House, as well as Habitat. It was created because of the need for housing and affordable housing for the families that we serve. Since I've been at the Ada Jenkins Center, the one dreaded question that we always get when people walk in for assistance is, where can I live and how do I find affordable housing and what is available around our area? And the answer always has been no. We have not been able to come up with anything besides, a few things here and there. And that is why Hope to Home was built, so that our families had a place to go while they were working towards their goals. We've identified that basically a family can achieve their goals and live independently, get a Habitat house, move out to their own place, as well as if they were able to get a job increased, as well as maybe an educational certificate, so they're not having to work at a Burger King or so forth. But the homes are a launching pad for people's success, and it allows them to be able to be successful in half that time. We have a family that we gauged, and it took her 6 years to reach those goals. And because of all her housing needs, it really could have taken her 3 if we eliminated that. So having the housing for our families is definitely a launching pad for them to be successful. I do not live here in this area, a North Mac area, because I can't afford it, but my heart is very close to it just because of the families that we are working with. I do think that this needs to be a town, regional, and a larger issue to that needs to be resolved. I think that I also am on the North MEC Economic Mobility Committee. And in that committee, we're also talking about the fact that if everybody pulls together and uses each other's talents, but also, like you guys said, work independently, because each town has its own needs. But if we can work together and not reinvent the wheel on things that are working for everybody, I think that we could move faster in making affordable housing available for some of our families. I do think also affordable housing doesn't always just mean habitat homes. It has to be in more scattered sites so people have an ability to interact with one another so that people can build social capital as well. Let's see, what else do I think you got a plan? Yes, I do believe that a plan needs to be in place. I think there's a lot of factors that we need to consider, but I think that working together, I'm excited, and I hope that we can come up with a plan and develop some options for the families. So
Thank you so much.
Mayor, next we have Jonathan Marlowe, the senior pastor from Mount Zion United Methodist Church.
Jonathan, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with all of you this morning, and I look forward to the work that we're going to be doing together over the course of the next several months, 6 months, however long it might be. As you said, I'm one of the senior pastors at Mount Zion United Methodist Church here in Cornelius. I have been here in Cornelius for a little over 2 years. I live in the Oakhurst neighborhood off of Washam Potts. And I actually first lived in Cornelius back in the early 90s when my wife was the associate pastor at Mount Zion. So I do have some history in the community in the area. Like one of our, I think it was Ryan who spoke up earlier, and like him, I was struck by the mayor's words that 80% of the workers in Cornelius cannot afford to live in Cornelius. And I think that really points to a moral issue. And I guess as somebody who represents a faith community, I do want to be mindful of the moral issues that are at stake in our work together. I do think affordable housing is a moral issue. I do think it's something that can and should be addressed by regional and county as well as local here in our town. So I think we should come up with a plan. Another thing that Wayne spoke of earlier as he was introducing our topic that I wrote down and really struck me and is lasting with me is that some people are even afraid of talking about affordable housing. He showed one of the newspaper clips about some of the proposals that someone in Charlotte was suggesting, and because of that, some people see those clips and are afraid of even talking about affordable housing. And I just want to remind us that fear is not a good motivator, and we're not at our best when we're acting out of fear, and that's why I think it's so good and so healthy that we're talking about affordable housing, because we're at our best when we're talking out of our core values. And I'm glad that we're able to do that together over the next few months. So one of the concerns that someone mentioned earlier, I think it was the mayor about and others about senior housing and people being able to afford to come to Cornelius and live near their children and grandchildren. That's a real concern as well. Some of you may know that our church is working on some senior housing near our campus. So I bring some experience in that area as well. So I look forward to working with everybody, and I appreciate the privilege of getting to know you and working with you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Mayor, our next member is Mr. Matt Gallagher with Blue Hill Development.
Hello, Matt. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Well, thanks for letting me be a part of this. And I'm not as good a developer as Joe Roy is, but I have been doing development in Cornelius for 20 years. I left school and married a lady who's family decided they wanted to keep their enemies close, right? And so I went to work for Gandy Communities in 2000, and we developed Oakhurst, Heritage Green, and built homes in Alexander Chase on Westmoreland. And I live in the Oakhurst community, have for 20 years. Kind of a fun place to be for my family, because I went from being a newlywed in a townhome, which was affordable at the time. Believe it or not, I bought it for $119,600. And then the recession, I decided to keep it because I couldn't sell it. Moved into the back because I went from 1 kid to 2 kids to 3 kids to 4 kids to 5 kids. So I have 5 kids, and I live in a single family home in the back of Oakhurst, which is extremely affordable for 7 of us. And I've just watched, Heritage Green and Oakhurst be affordable options. And the thing that bothers me the most is that a lot of these affordable options come on the market and are scooped up by investors to turn into rentals. Not the end of the world, because we need good rental options, but some of the home ownership affordable options have been scooped up so fast by the investor community that we're not able to see the wealth generated for somebody to buy a home, live in it for a while, sell it, take that into their next home. So I think the biggest issue that I'd like to see, to kind of piggyback on what Susan said, is how is the development community able to do the missing middle, which I see in Cornelius is 350 to 450, because it gives our people an opportunity to move up out of a townhome, becomes an organic, affordable home. It also gives us an ability for somebody at a higher level home to come down and stay in Cornelius and downsize. But that usually comes with density. And so both the missing middle and the affordable, the right density and the right locations. And to piggyback off of what Dr. Mike said about transit, not to get off on a tangent, but the Davidson Town Board and I have gone round and round that when you're 8.5 miles away from public transit, it's not a good place for affordable housing, because you have 2 people that will live in a house that's affordable, but they need 2 cars, and their disposable income go right down the tubes. And so I think Cornelius has a unique opportunity because of mass transit, the walkability to some of our service, hospitality, retail, jobs, the fact that we have some infill opportunities in downtown that's near the police station, the fire station, walkable to JV, Washam, and Cornelius Elementary, where we could really provide our civil servants the opportunity to live in Cornelius and walk to work, and maybe even do it with 1 car, which would be fantastic. So, but that takes a creative approach to density and a willingness to give density in the right places. And believe it or not, Julie Miller and I, who's also on this board, were just talking about a small infill piece, unbeknownst to each other, that we were on this committee together, a small infill piece that we said, wouldn't this be great? It's 0.13 miles away from Town Hall, and the opportunity to put a little bit more density. And it doesn't need to be big multifamily. It could be the soft density that Ryan mentioned, duplexes, quadplexes, or triplexes. So I don't know if I bring a unique perspective, but maybe a passionate perspective that they're through development, through the town, and maybe a third leg of the stool, a nonprofit to help manage it. There's a way of a collective genius that can solve this problem. And I'm not saying I bring any of that genius to the table, but I definitely can bring some snide remarks and some opinions. So thank you for letting me join.
Great points. Thank you so much, Matt.
Mayor, we'll now go to Joe Roy with Meeting Street Homes and Communities.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for your participation, sir.
Still on mute, Joe. I don't have you off yet. There you go. Nope. Now you're back on again.
Push on your space bar, Joy.
I know how to operate one of these. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh.
Mayor and group, thank y'all for having me be a part of this. little background of, as mentioned, I'm Meeting Street Homes and Communities. Our office is in the downtown area of Cornelius. I've lived in Cornelius since 1993. We live in the back of the Peninsula area, and we go to Bethel Presbyterian Church off of Bethel Presbyterian Road. We, my company is, I believe I'm gonna jump straight to how we're uniquely positioned. We built close to 2,000 homes at this point. Almost every home has been a smaller home, smaller with the goal of being affordable, right-sized, been hard-headed about the types of homes and types of communities that I've done in almost 24 years of being in business. I've never tried to build the big custom homes. I just don't think that those are appropriate. Don't think anyone needs them. Fine if that's the way you want to live, but it's not what I've been putting in this market, predominantly in the north end of the Charlotte housing area. We a lot of what Matt has said, I'm not going to repeat, because I agree. Density, appropriate density, soft density is going to be key to trying to solve an affordable equation. I have wondered and have listened to affordability for quite a while. It is, for whatever reason, God's put it on me as something that I'm interested in seeing it happen. But I've been paying attention for a number of years, and I have not heard nor seen of an affordable solution. One thing that I've done since I was probably a teenager is I've copied and modeled after successful people and successful things. So I'm not, for Cornelius, my goal and for this committee would not to be to create something unique, because I don't know that we could pull it off, to be honest. I don't want to be on a committee that doesn't accomplish something. And I think to be able to achieve this, we're going to have to find something to model from another town somewhere in the United States, or we're going to have to find something to model to be able to pull this off, because a lot of people talk about it and never get there. So again, I'm going to be looking, Wayne, for a commitment from this group and a real goal in the end that that we can achieve. Because I absolutely believe that not just Cornelius, that we have an affordability issue and it's getting worse. And I don't know. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Joe. That was very well put. Okay, next, Wayne.
Mayor, next is George Searle with First National Bank.
Hello, George.
George, still got you on mute.
On mute, George.
There we
go.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Well, I really appreciate you asking me to do this. And I know that we start off saying the willingness to serve. I don't think I was I was kind of voluntold to serve. So I really enjoyed that as well. I think both of us have been told that. I've been in Cornelius since 1990, moved up here from Charlotte with the family, and we moved to Island Forest, and then we went to another house on Laguna, and today we live off of Meta in a neighborhood called Shearwater Point, and we just love the lake. The issues here, the top issue that I think that we need to challenge ourselves is that plan, and that plan of the education. You know, this statement that you gave us, Mayor, around 80% can't live here or their work. I'm sure you all know that other horrible percentage that is in Mecklenburg County, that Charlotte is 50 out of 50 in being the weakest part of a city among 50 other cities, that if you are born in a poor zip code, that you probably will stay in that poor zip code as well, which is very, very atrocious for any American city. So I think Joe hit it on the spot for me around learning from other cities. What are they doing that we can do? I've been around for a while, like y'all. I've been a banker for over 40 years. I've been in groups like this in Charlotte, not up here. That it's great for us to get together and we start talking about these plans. And these plans are real good, but they sometimes are not realistic, that we can see a success very quickly. So I know that we all want to have success very quickly. So our plans should have very short wins, and that we can celebrate those wins, even if it's just getting together like today. I think this is a great win that you all have brought all of us together and put this in what we want to do every day. So yes, I agree that we should have a plan that's a town plan. I agree that the plan should be something that we can learn from each other as we go. I don't see it being something that we do and just meet for a few months and do it. I think this is something that we all have to commit to, that we see this and we actually have success at the end of the day. I don't know if I bring anything unique to the group. I do work with the Peninsula Community Foundation. If you've not heard of us, we're a small foundation that's been around since 2001 or 2. And we work with Smithfield Coalition, Ada Jenkins, Manny over at Neighborhood Center. And I know we have Habitat going tonight, is the Blue Jean Bash. So there we go. It's part of the new interesting way of raising money. So, all of that is a big passion for me. And again, I really appreciate you having me on this committee.
Thank you, George. And, as a banker, we're friendly competitors, I might add, but, thank you for what you've done with the foundation. I mean, you've been a great resource through this tragedy we've been through with the pandemic. Your support, you've reached out, I don't know how many times, to do the right thing and help our folks. So I greatly appreciate that. And I know you struggle as well as a banker, as I do, to satisfy our community reinvestment requirements that we have as bankers. And CRA is a big deal and something I'm sure we'll talk about as we get through more technicalities of this committee. So thank you, George.
Thank you.
Mayor, next we have Julie Miller representing the Meridian Street community.
Julie?
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the committee, as other people have said. Let's see, what neighborhood do I represent? I've lived in Cornelius for 16 years now, and I'm currently in the Meridian Street area, what's kind of known as the Old Town part of it. And that's a lot to do with the fact that this is, historically a mill town. We have an intact mill in the center of town. And these streets here, Church Street, School Street, Meridian, are indeed mill houses. They were built to go into the gem yarn mill. So now a large percentage of these homes are rentals. They are not owner occupied. A lot of them are being scooped up by investors. So I guess that leads me to my top issue that I hope to see that the committee can come up with, and I'd like to be a part of participating in it, is how can we balance revitalization with redevelopment as well as preservation. I think that, we have some distinct districts that are sort of forming. We'll have an arts district, we have historic district, and how can we balance the growth with those things? I think one of the things you asked is, should the town address the housing issue? And I definitely think we're best suited to do that. Because as you know, Cornelius is a very unique town. I don't know of many others in Mecklenburg County that have, on the one hand, huge mansions on the lake, and as well as, little 100-year-old residences, that give a nice small town feel. There's a flavor that I think when you drive into this part of Cornelius, just feels nice. It feels like a community. The names have the street names have significance, I think people like that it's walkable. My main concerns are also displacement. We have a lot of residents who are here, who've owned their house for many, many years, but they're seeing their property taxes go very high and maybe can't afford the new number. So I'm concerned about displacing residents who fortunately have lived here many years, may already own their houses outright. As far as the housing plan, yes, I would like to see that. As far as zoning and density, which has been brought up before, subdividing, but retaining green space. How do we do that? I would like to also, I think the last gentleman, Joe, talked about, working rapidly, putting in the work, making decisions, that benefit the town. And my unique perspective, not only being a resident here, but I also serve on the Cornelius Historic Preservation Committee. And our goal is, oh, that's my turn. We're in multiple ways. We seek to preserve the culture, historic, architecture, oral histories, pictures. We seek to preserve all of that in the town. So thank you for your time. And that's a little about me.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate your service.
Mayor, next we'll go to Todd Little, representing the Catawba North neighborhood.
Hey,
Good morning,
Todd.
everyone.
Welcome, buddy.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me. As you said, I'm a resident of the Catawba North neighborhood, 46-year resident of Cornelius and member of Mount Zion Church. Cornelius has changed a lot in 46 years. My dad was mayor in 1974, and they bought their house for $20,000. It was on an acre lot, 2,000 square foot, beautiful place. Can't do it anymore. My dream was to live in a town where it was walking distance to shopping, restaurants, arts and crafts. We've got it all here. It was a dream come true, and I thank the mayor and the board for what they've done. I would love to, I think it's the best interest of the board and Cornelius to come up with a plan for this. I don't think we need to get outside sources to help us with it, but I think the overall final decision needs to be made the town of Cornelius as far as affordable housing. I've got 5 daughters. One of them is a sophomore at East Carolina. She's an education major. I asked her the other day, I said, do you think you will come back to Cornelius? And she said, Daddy, there's no way I can live in Cornelius and be a school teacher. I can't afford it. And I said, well, that's the plan of this committee, is to get it together and figure out how we can do that. And if it doesn't work, blame it on Woody.
Get in line.
Okay. She said it was good. So again, thank you for having me. And I think we got our work cut out for us with the property values in Cornelius and the obstacles that we have in front of us. But I think it's a reachable goal that we can get to. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Mayor, next we have Mr. Ron Potts representing Smithville.
Hey, Ronnie, welcome. So glad to have you.
Uh-oh, can't hear you, Ron. Not sure what.
I can't hear him.
Ron,
Danny?
check your microphone on your side. You're not muted, but your microphone may be turned off on your computer.
No.
We'll come back to Ron.
We'll come
Ron,
back to Ron.
We'll let you work on it a little bit and come back to you, buddy.
Mayor, looking at the time, what I might suggest is we let our consultant introduce himself and let him go over a few items. And then maybe we can come back to Ron before we close out.
Yeah, that would be perfect. And welcome Roger Walton, who is with Clarion and Associates. You have a further introduction, Wayne?
I'm going to let Roger introduce
Let him
himself.
do it. There you go. Thank you for helping us, Roger.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me to be with you, and I'm delighted to be here. I loved hearing all of the comments from all of you. Quick word of introduction about me. I've been working as a town and city planner for 40 years. For 21 of those years, I was planning director in Chapel Hill, but I've been working all across North Carolina and the Southeast U.S. So I am hoping that I and Clarion can bring some ideas and some help to you as you're doing this. I so appreciate what all of you are saying is that a solution, a housing plan for Cornelius needs to be a Cornelius plan. There's a lot of other examples to draw from. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but what is done in Cornelius has to be done by you and has to fit for Cornelius. So with that as a short introduction, I am going to try to share my screen if that will work, and I think it is. Here we are. I'm going to run through just a couple of ideas as hopefully kind of a preview of the discussions that you're going to be having and what I and we as Clarion can be doing to help. So for this morning's conversation, I'm going to be just talking briefly about the housing issues that Cornelius is facing, about what can be accomplished with the housing plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about the definitions of affordable housing, workforce housing, and how it is you want to frame what you are going to accomplish, and you are going to accomplish it. Just a word about some of the approaches that other communities are using, and then my personal encouragement to you as you begin your discussion here. You've already talked a lot about the housing issues in Cornelius right now, the various housing price ranges, the demographics, the existing neighborhoods that you have, some of them new, some of them have been here for many, many years and decades. We are hearing already, and we have some information about recent construction trends. What you're going to be helping to focus on is community goals. So given all of that information about housing in Cornelius, what are our goals? What do we want to try and accomplish? Mayor and the town board and all of you, I tip my hat to you and congratulations on the decision to go forward with creating a housing plan. That is terrific. Here is my version of what I think you can accomplish with a housing plan. First, pulling together a lot of information and forging a consensus understanding of your situation, being able to articulate what Cornelius's community values are and goals for the future. Identifying the resources, you've already done a lot of that, but there's still a little bit more to do. Identifying the resources that are out there and potential partners that you can be working with. Having specific strategies for achieving the goals. Several of you have mentioned something that just I've been talking about my whole career, which is be specific about what you want to try and accomplish and then put together some strategies to accomplish it and then an action plan. I have, some of you that I've worked with before might have heard me say this, I apologize for repeating, but as a planner, I've always said to communities I work with, there are three things that should be focused on in a comprehensive plan. Three questions, really. Where are we today? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? So that's what this plan should do. It should talk about where we are today, what our values and goals are, set the strategies, and then put an action plan in place to achieve those strategies. You've already got a lot of building blocks already, and we're going to help you put some more in place, I believe. You've already mentioned the 2010 Comprehensive Master Plan, the North Mecklenburg Demographic and Housing Assessment, which is a great document. I've been going over that. Tremendous amount of data and information in there that we can be drawing from. We've got census data, real estate market data. You've got several people on this committee and other sources and resources to go to get a very specific take on what's going on with the real estate housing market in Cornelius. You've got several things underway in terms of neighborhood plans and strategies. The Cornelius Town Board has been terrific on having policies in place and open to development of new strategies. So those are all building blocks that you have in place now. And then community engagement has got to be a huge part of this. So after this committee comes up with some good ideas and recommendations to the town board, a community dialogue, getting full buy-in and around consensus ideas is important. Some definitions that you've heard talked about a lot: affordable housing, workforce housing. Different communities define it different ways. The objective, the overall objective, is to achieve diverse housing options for a community. And that's a term that comes out of your comprehensive plan. Some of the definitions that are frequently used by communities for affordable housing, for example, housing should cost no more than 30% of a household's income. So there you try and balance the income with the cost of the housing. Another definition that's often used is that housing, there should be housing affordable to households that have an income 80% or less of the area median income. That's one definition of affordable. Another definition of workforce housing is that housing should be available to individuals in the community in which they work. You shouldn't have to live someplace else and then commute to your job. You ought to be able to live in the community in which you work. And then just a short figure there, that something I just looked up, the median income in Mecklenburg is $63,000 per household. And so 80% of that would be $51,000. That's one kind of definition of the target that you might be aiming at with affordable housing initiative. You talked about examples from other communities. Do not want to, do not need to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of communities that have done a lot of work out there. And one of the things I think that I and my colleagues at Clarion can bring is some good examples from other communities that might be considered in Cornelius. So looking at what other communities with characteristics like Cornelius have done, and to look at that and hold it up and say, is that something that we want to consider? Yes, or no. So things that other communities have done to try to achieve affordable housing objectives: partnerships with nonprofit organizations, employee housing programs, incentives to developers to try and develop some housing that's affordable. Land acquisition, you've already talked about the possibility of doing something there. And this last bullet, coordination with other services. Several of you have mentioned transportation. Critical. The balance and the idea and bringing together housing, income, transportation, that all needs to be part of the housing plan that you work on. This is just an example from another community. I mentioned I worked in Chapel Hill for a long time. This is how Chapel Hill applies that definition of affordable housing. So they say, what is affordable housing? Well, what is the family size of the household? And then what is 80% of median for that household size? And then there's some income targets that they want to try and be working on. So that's kind of things we'd be pulling together. So as you're beginning these discussions, this is the first meeting, you're going to have many more. You're going to be doing really good work to define community goals and objectives, to help identify the resources that are available, explore all the different partnership opportunities that are out there, learn from other communities, and then compile together a housing plan with next steps and possible recommendations that you'd make to the town board. So we're short on time, Mayor, but comments that you want to entertain at this meeting or another one. And again, I just congratulate all of you for the thinking that you've been doing to date and what you're going to be doing from this point forward.
Thank you so much, Roger. I really, really appreciate that. And there is Ron Potts.
And I think I'm ready this time. Can you hear me?
Got us. Yeah, let us.
Yes, sir.
Ron, thank you for being a part of this. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for inviting me. And again, it's good to see you, Mayor. So I am Ron Potts, and I am a native of the Smithville community and the Smithville Community Coalition. We reorganized in 2011 with the objective of revitalizing Smithville. But over the years, that has kind of morphed into Save Our Smithville. And with under the direction of Willie Jones and John Quinn, Lisa Mayhew, we have come up with a formal plan that we have been working with the town for the past couple of years in terms of trying to get off the ground. Smithville, we hope, is ready for the revitalization, and our greatest challenge is fighting off gentrification. All of us here receive daily solicitations for buying our properties from investors. However, we're sure that none of those amounts that are being offered are enough to afford us to relocate anyplace else. So we are trying to save our community, and there's a lot of land here. Unfortunately, our average age, because our community dates back formally to the early 1900s, but we can trace it back to the Civil War days. And some of the families have lived here all of their lives. And unfortunately, in the past couple of years, we've lost many members, just age. And most recently, a couple did die from COVID-19. And those houses are empty. Again, prime target for being picked up by investors. So I am definitely in support of, and we solicit the town's support in doing this. And as you know, we have been working with Mecklenburg County for the past 2 years. Originally, we were granted $250,000 from Mecklenburg County about 2 years ago, but that the income has been slow in coming. Last year, we were denied. We didn't get anything. But we are definitely in need of funds, and we have plenty of property. And the plan that has been developed and presented includes income based on median income, and it actually goes down to 30% of the area median income, up to 120%, with a mixture of single-family homes and multifamily homes. And we've gotten a lot of play from this study, but we're just looking for funds and support to get it done. I think that's all I have.
Well, that's a perfect introduction. Great work going on in Smithville, and the committee will be hearing more details about that in future meetings. So stand by, and you'll hear some great plans. It was a plan that was assisted in the development of Daryl Williams. Many of you know Daryl in Charlotte, and did a fabulous job. And we hope we can actually get Daryl to maybe speak to the committee somewhere along the way, in addition to Ron and Willie and some others. So thank you very much. We're excited. Who else we have? Wayne, anybody left?
Mayor, that's all of us that are here. The only other thing that I can offer before you might make your closing remarks is that we will plan to do another doodle poll. That seems to be the best way to schedule folks. We'll continue with Zoom until we move into phase 3. And I appreciate everybody. I think, Mayor, this worked very well today.
Yes.
what we hope at our next meeting, and we've been asked by some committee members that couldn't make it today, if we could rotate it around a little bit. So we'll certainly look at the doodle and see what other available times, and we'll certainly try to get the largest number of folks we can. Just to give you a little snapshot of what our next meeting will be, Roger's going to expand a little bit on what he started with today, and we'll dive a little bit more into what goes into a comprehensive housing plan and some of the things we might study and look at. We also hope, as the mayor said, to hear from Darrell Williams and Smithville folks on what they've put into a revitalization plan. And then future topics, we will hear from a developer who has worked in Charlotte about what it takes to develop affordable housing and the constraints, the costs that go into it. And it's not magic. There's cost, and you have to recoup those costs. Most developers are not in it to give donations. I think Matt and Joe, I know they give a lot, but I don't think they can build housing and just give it away. So we certainly are going to hear from developers in the future about what it takes to build affordable housing. And then we're also going to hear from some of our resource folks at Habitat, ADA, at the Council of Governments about what it takes to tap into HUD and CDBG resources. And then we'll continue to go from there. So, Mayor, that concludes my comments, and I'll turn it over to you for closing remarks.
Well, the only thing else I'll ask you is there were a couple of our committee members that were unable to attend today. Remind me of who those are, Wayne, and maybe give a little update.
First one would be Pastor Michelle Hoverson.
Yes. Michelle was not. Many of you know Michelle. She has been involved in the Neighborhood Care Center, was formerly with Grace Covenant Church as one of their pastors, and started. I worked with her a while back in the beginnings of the Neighborhood Care Center. She is now with another organization that's a mission-oriented organization. We'll let her introduce herself once she can join us, but I'm very excited to have Michelle as part of this. And who else do we have missing? Cynthia Bush, I think, is one,
Bush,
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Cynthia Bush is very involved in our community. I've worked with her on the educational study commission that we set up a while back. She's a resident of Peninsula. She is also an instructor at UNCC, I believe. And so I also serve with her on the Kane Arts Center Board of Directors. So she is a fantastic person. Will bring a lot to the table. So that's the other one.
And Mayor, the last member is Miss Coralia LaRusso.
Yeah, now just to tell you a little bit about Coralia, she has lived on Washam Potts Road for a number of years. With her family. She participated in the Cornelius Police Citizens Academy and was learning so much about the community from that. She really wanted to participate and give back in other ways. And so she's really excited about being a part of this and represent that segment of Cornelius. So we're very happy to have her too.
Yes.
I believe that entails our committee. We had a lot of participation, but several just couldn't be here. So yes. I want to thank everybody again. We're right at 12:02. I missed it by 2 minutes, but anyway, that's pretty good considering all the content that we had today. I really hope yours are as excited as I am about moving this process forward. We got a lot of work to do. I think you know that. A lot of folks have spent a lot of time with me from different parts of our town, particularly Smithville and others, to teach me a lot, but I got a lot more to learn, and I think we all do as we bring this together. This is a housing study for our town, in the entirety of our town, not just one particular area. So we got to get this right. It's very important to me and to our board to get this right. So thank you for your participation. We will be back in touch. We will keep this moving. I appreciate your time. It's going to take a little time, and I appreciate your commitment and your time. And hopefully we can meet in person soon. I know you don't want to meet with me in the room right now. I get that. But I'll be out of this quarantine next week. Hopefully, if all continues to go well, and back on the streets again. So thank y'all. We'll be back together again sooner than later. And look for that doodle poll and please respond to it. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank
Mayor.
you. Have a good day.
Thanks all.
Thank you.